A long twisted tale of a deeply evil HOA with multiple updates that cover everything. Today is a banger. So, long story short, today's been an absolute crap show. I can't even comprehend where to start. So my parents owned about 30 acres of land in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska, on the outskirts of town. My parents built their house in the late 80s, and that's where I've lived my whole life. My parents passed away, and I inherited the property, and it's all my land, or was my land. Back in 2005, this developer bought up a bunch of neighboring land and wanted to buy my land. I told him I was willing to sell 10 acres furthest from the house. It's the adjoining section of his neighborhood. He asked for 20 acres, and I told him that the second 10 acres would be 3 times the price. Well, he agreed. And we signed the paper, and he bought the land, and I was paid for it. End of story. So I thought. The land sat empty for over a decade since it took a while for him to sell the plots of land he made to home buyers and his company built houses. From about 2005 to 2012, the land sat empty, and I didn't mind. I still mowed the grass and whatnot to keep it tidy, but never tried to take the land over or anything like that. By fall of last year, he had finished the entire area. There's about 200 homes in that neighborhood. Because of the neighborhood, my 10 acres is now worth about 20 times more what I originally sold it for, and the HOA knows that. Since the September of 2017, I've had a bunch of angry letters and citations left on my property, and of course in my mailbox. Some of them include having a barn longer than 7 by 7, I have a 40 by 40, having abandoned vehicles on my property, it's a project car shell that I'm working on, I have the actual chassis in the barn, but it needs quite a bit of work. I bought it as an old rusted body, and it sits outside and will continue to do so until I can deal with it. Having a non-conforming mailbox, still no idea what the heck that is. Having the improper roof tiles, again, no idea. I ignored them and told the HOA members that I'm not part of their neighborhood, and therefore have no reason to follow their crappy rules. The HOA says since my property value has gone up, I owe back dues from the date I sold my land, before there was even a single house built, and have to correct everything on the list. The back dues are current $10,000, but they state that if I don't pay by December 31st, I'll be charged interest that's accrued. Again, no idea where they're getting the interest from, but I do believe their HOA fees are around $750 a year. It'll cost me like $15,000 to, quote, fix my house. I think it's absolute crap that they can even make me try to do so. Number one, I went through all the documents I signed, and not a single document from the developer makes any mention of an HOA or my association with it. Number two, I have no idea why the HOA is coming after me. I live almost half a mile away from the nearest house that belongs to the neighborhood. The entire neighborhood has its own little custom street signs and lamps. I don't have any of that. So, how can they say I'm part of the HOA? They said to either pay up or they'll put a lien on my property and take it. From what I understand, if I pay the $10,000, doesn't that mean I'm admitting to guilt and being forced into the HOA? Well, I don't know, guys. Any advice would be much appreciated. Update number 1. So, just had an hour-long discussion with the lawyer. He went through all the documents. He asked if I was sure that every document was there, and I told him it was. When I sold all the documents, I put them all in the same folder along with my taxes. He says that there's no chance I'm in the HOA since I didn't sign anything. He let me know that he'd be glad to send them a cease and desist letter to the HOA. I brought up adverse possession, and he suggested I don't pursue it, since I want them to leave me alone rather than instigate anything larger. So, for now, he said not to pay anyone or sign anything. He'll mail out the cease and desist letter today, and he says the HOA tries contacting me. I should just tell them to contact him instead. So, I think I'm in the clear now. Update number 2. So, I met up with a real estate attorney that was referred to me by a commenter on the first post. And I did a little search, and I'm in the process of trying to find the old developer's master's plan. So far, here's what we've been dug up. I sold my land to developer A. He owned the land for about 2 years and then filed bankruptcy and lost the land to the bank. That's when the maintenance of the land went to crap and I was mowing it and taking care of it, because the bank simply didn't care. Bank sold it to developer B, and that's the person that built the neighborhood. We got in touch with said developer B, and he said he was no longer part of the neighborhood. In fact, the HOA is in charge of the entire area. His company just owned the lots and they sold/built on them for the families. They have zero say anymore. I asked him about the master plans and if he thought he owed my remaining 10 acres. He said absolutely not. The entire neighborhood sits on a land of 20+ acres that were purchased from in. So he was helpful and it was clear he had no wrongdoing. I spoke to the lawyer to see if I could file an adverse possession on the land I maintain, but he said it would be a waste of time and money. But I was going to do it just in spite of the HOA. The title search and everything came up clean. It showed my parents as the previous owners and then me. No way could they have owned my land. The records go way back and there's a clear chain of ownership, as my lawyer put it. It's incontestable. We sent an HOA desistance letter, as well as stopped contacting me unless they have actual signed documents that show I was part of the HOA. Well, yeah, they never got back to me. I was out of town and came back late last night to my mailbox missing. It was cut clear off the post with a chainsaw. Wooden post with a metal mailbox on top. I told my lawyer this, and he says that this is a big deal, and that USPS would send the person to jail. I repurchased an identical mailbox and set up cameras all over the property. If they did it again, I'll have them on tape red-handed. But the biggest thing we've uncovered, we found out that they were planning something big. Turns out the HOA wants to put in another community playground and pool clubhouse, and they need some more land. They can't expand in any other direction since they're almost at the end of the highway, and the other sides are zoned for agriculture. They decided they'd try to take over my land. They yet had to file a lien on my property, so I'm guessing they were trying to force me into the HOA and make me sell the land below market value. Either way, they showed their hand, and now I'm on alert. We filed a complaint with the police regarding the stolen mailbox, and we have a paper trail for that now. It's just a waiting game to see what they do next, I guess. Should I send them a letter saying I know their plan and there's no way they can get my land? They have their monthly meeting every second Tuesday of the month, so it's in a few days, and I'm sure I'll be the topic of discussion. Should I go to it? Well, here's the second update. So I was away for the holidays and I came back on Monday to find my project car was towed right out of my driveway. My pond was emptied out and filled with gravel and sand and a fenced off 2 acres, 2 chains by 1 furlong on my property closest to the HOA. So what do you think I did? I called the cops. Filed a report regarding the stolen property. The car wasn't registered and was just an empty shell, so I have no idea where it is, nor will it easily be tracked. It's not worth a lot, maybe $3,000, but it's the principal of the freaking president of the HOA. They're jerks. I had my lawyer draft up the C&D, and since it's nearly 2 weeks ago, they haven't contacted me in any way except this. So I hired a local salvage company to come tear up the fence this weekend, and they're doing it free of charge, since I'm letting them keep the fence to sell as scrap metal, or whatever they do with it. My lawyer suggested I send up a letter demanding payment to fix my pond, as it was filled with gravel and sand. A local landscape company quoted me at almost $10,000 to get the pond back to the way it was, so that's what's suggested. I asked for another $2,000 for loss of use of the pond. The HOA lawyered up, so I think it's best I no longer post anything else here, until it's settled. I didn't want to leave you all without some closure since you've all been so amazing. Thanks for all the advice, guys. What's up guys, Mr. Reddito here. I hope you're having an amazing day. So I have one final update. It came out 6 months after the last update. Click that subscribe button and let's jump into the final update. So, 6 long months. Everything's been resolved. This is my final post regarding this. Already asked my lawyer if I could post this. He said go ahead. So, the HOA board got a lawyer to respond to my C&D. They requested a meeting ASAP with my lawyer present as well. I didn't want to go, but my lawyer suggested me hear them out at least. At the meeting, I noticed their president and some higher-ups were not there. The board had no idea what the heck was happening, and their lawyer was just as confused as them. After I set out my timeline of events, they thanked me and accepted all the financial burden of replenishing my pond, missing car, and damages. I got checks for everything and got my pond restored back in April and didn't really think much of it. I found out a few weeks ago from the new HOA president. Turns out the old president, treasurer, and someone else had been stealing money from the coffers. They wanted my land to expand and put in a pool, clubhouse, just as I saw on their website. The old board fined everyone a ton of money to get all the cash together and buy my land. Instead, they spent it on themselves. They still needed my land somehow, so they could have just taken it over the land that I was using. Idiotic plan. Long story short, their entire plan fell apart after I fought back and brought to the other members' attention what they were doing. From what I've been told, they had to sell their house to pay back the HOA and have since moved far away. The HOA has offered me market value for my land, and I do plan on selling, since I really don't use the land for anything, and the money is not bad. I did not file any complaints with the postal inspector or anything, since the situation resolved itself. I got a new project car, for those asking, a '98 Supra with a bad engine. My new project is a '67 Fastback that I plan on restoring to look like Eleanor. I want to thank a ton of people for chiming in with advice, including a few from Nebraska. Okay guys, I found some very interesting comments about this wild HOA story. Here it is. Wow, what an insane story. I've always heard HOAs are so evil. Comment 2. Yeah, that's why I'm a little disappointed they're still selling the land to the HOA after all this. I live in a neighborhood with an HOA and our whole street works together just to spite them. The hate fuels us. Comment 3 says, I'm in Australia. Why are HOAs so big in America? Do they do them in other countries? I don't know if I've ever seen one before. Then the final comment has someone that lives in Alaska. They say this. I have no idea. I grew up in Alaska, which is essentially cold Australia. Except replace all the animals you guys have with bears, eagles, moose, and whales. I can't imagine anyone in Alaska dealing with an HOA or dreaming of telling someone else what to do with their own property. Then my husband and I moved to one of those states in the middle of America and could not find a place to rent that didn't have an HOA. So guys, that leaves me with this one question. Have you ever had any problems with an HOA in your neighborhood or where you stay? Drop your comments down below and let me know your thoughts. We're going to check out story number 2 now. It's the final story of the video and the title is, Am I the A-hole for telling my stepmother she's not the most important woman in my life? Okay, so my dad's married to Janny. They've been together for a little over 6 years and married for about 4 now. Dad was a widower when they met. I'm 16 female and my siblings are 14 female and 12 male. Our mom passed away 8 years ago. Janny has not adjusted well to being a step-parent. I think she thought this would just be apparent to us because our mom died and didn't consider that we'd still talk about and have photos of her. Well, over the years, she's been to therapy and my dad have gone to couple sessions. In the last year, the 5 of us have gone to family therapy and she's admitted it's hard for her because she feels like she's second best or a consolation to us and that we don't really love and admire her. Dad assured her that we all love her just as much as Mom, that she is number one and he's vital to our family. Well, for a while in sessions, she and the therapist would talk about how she feels like she's not a true member of the family, like she's second-class member, not someone we see as important in the structure of the family. She said she never felt love from any of us. She feels like even extended family, which she explicitly said was grandparents and aunts and uncles, come before her when it comes to us kids. She said she sees it in so many things, including the way we don't regard her parents as our grandparents, or her two sisters as aunts, and how when I turned 16 and we did a nice dinner party, my guest list included both my mom and dad's sides of the family, but no one from her side. Well, my sister was the first to speak during all this, and she said nothing was ever done to make her feel bad, that she just doesn't think of her as a mom or as being her parent. Once that was said, she was talking about how much that makes her feel bad, like she's not even truly accepted. Well, the therapist asked us to consider whether we'd be willing to deepen the relationship so she felt more equally loved and important, as her dad and dad wanted us to consider ditching our typical Christmas dynamic. Spend the time with her parents exclusively this year. Then, 3 weeks ago, she brought up the fact that I made something for class that went into details on my family, and she pointed out that she and her family were not even mentioned once. Then she asked me why my grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins were mentioned on both sides, all within their own pages. But I couldn't make room for the most important woman in my life, aka her. I told her because, well, let me tell you this right now. You're not the most important woman in my life. I told her that will always be my mom, my real mom, followed by my grandma's. And she asked if she was just second best then, if she was unimportant, and I refused to answer because she's being ridiculous. Afterwards, my dad and Janie both told me I was cruel to say she wasn't the most important woman, and when she's there every day and's done so much for us. So guys, I have to ask, am I the a-hole for still loving my bio mom even after she passed away, and not accepting my stepmother as my real mom? It turns out the verdict for this story and all the comments are not the a-hole. This one comment, though, it caught my attention, and let me see what you guys think of it. Not the a-hole. I think stepmom needs a different therapist because it doesn't seem like she's getting a lot out of this one. Your feelings about this are valid, and dad's wrong for trying to force you to deepen the relationship when it sounds like stepmom is burning bridges and looking for a ready-made family of her own. Comment 2 replies to that saying, yeah, I think stepmom's getting what she wants, which is emotional validation, rather than what she needs, which is actual therapy to uncover the core beliefs and life experience that have created her distorted view of things in the first place. If she and OP's dad genuinely want things to change, it's time for a new therapist, not the a-hole. So guys, let me ask you this. Do you think that a new therapist would be the best step? Drop your comments down below, advice, whatever you want to give. That's all the stories for today. You should check out my description below for the other channels I have. I have 3 channels in total, and you can also find my Instagram there. Go drop a follow. It has behind the scenes, green screen pictures, 60-second stories, you name it. Go ahead and follow that. And guys, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.